Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope that you guys had a really great Shabbat. I got to take my son to a splash pad in, I think it was like 114 today. Yeah, that was a fun time for sure. So we're going to read the Torah portion. And today the Torah portion is called Statute. Chukat. I think I said that right. And it means statute. So it's Numbers 19, chapter 19, verse 1, all the way through chapter 22, verse 1. And then we're going to do the Haftorah. So, let us begin. And I'm reading out of a Bible this time, not from my phone. It's a little beat up Bible, but my best friend got me this Bible. Yahuwah spoke to Moses and Aaron. This is the legal statute. Statute? Maybe? I think that's what it is. That Yahuwah has commanded. Instruct the Israelites to bring you an unblemished red cow that has no defect and has never been yoked. Give it to Eleazar the priest, and he will have it brought outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. Eleazar the priest is to take some of its blood with his finger and sprinkle it 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. The cow must be burned in his sight. Its hide, flesh, and blood are to be burned along with its dung. The priest is to take cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson yarn and throw them onto its dung. Throw it onto the fire where the cow is burning. Then the priest must wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. After that, he may enter the camp, but he will remain ceremonially unclean until evening. The one who burned the cow must also wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and he will remain unclean until evening. A man who is clean is to gather up the cow's ashes and deposit them outside the camp. Oh, and I'm reading from the Life Application Study Bible. Good to know. I'm not sure what version this is. I think it's the ESV. Okay, so to continue. In a ceremonially clean place. You know what? I need to double check something, so just bear with me a moment here. I'm checking my volume. Oh, we're at 91. Okay, so we're good. I didn't know if it was up or not. Okay. Jeez, this boat is a little wrinkly. The ashes must be kept by the Israelite community for preparing the water to remove impurity. It is a sin offering. Then the one who gathers up the cow's ashes must wash his clothes. A sin offering. Not a lamb. See, there was many ways that you could do your sin offering. It was not just with a lamb. And here, clearly, we are told that a sin offering was for the cow. The cow's ashes. Okay. And he will remain unclean for 7 days. He is to... Okay, he will remain unclean until evening. This is a permanent statute for the Israelites and for the foreigner who resides among them. The person who touches any human corpse will be unclean for 7 days. He is to purify himself with the water. On the 3rd day and the 7th day, then he will be clean. I need my fingers. But if he does not purify himself on the 3rd and 7th days, he will not be clean. Anyone who touches, a body of a person who has died and does not purify himself defiles the tabernacle of Yahuwah. That person will be cut off from Israel. He remains unclean because the water for impurity has not been sprinkled on him, and his uncleanness is still on him. This is the law when a person dies in a tent. Everyone who enters the tent and everyone who is already in the tent will be unclean for 7 days, and any open container without a lid tied on it is unclean. Anyone in the open field who touches a person who has been killed by the sword or has died, or who even touches a human bone or a grave, will be unclean for 7 days. For the purification of the unclean person, they are to take some of the ashes of the burnt sin offering, put them in a jar, and add fresh water to them. A person who is clean is to take hyssop, dip it in the water, and sprinkle the tent. All the furnishings and the people who are there. He is also to sprinkle the one who touched a bone, a grave, a corpse, or a person who had been killed. The one who is clean is to sprinkle the unclean person on the 3rd day and the 7th day after he purifies the unclean person on the 7th day. The one being purified must wash his clothes and bathe in water, and he will be clean by evening. But a person who is unclean and does not purify himself, that person will be cut off from the assembly, because he has defiled the sanctuary of Yahuwah. The water for impurity has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. This is a permanent statute for them. The person who sprinkles the water for impurity is to wash his clothes, and whoever touches the water for impurity will be unclean until evening. Anything the unclean person touches will become unclean, and anyone who touches it will be unclean until evening. This one says, water from the rock. Okay. The entire Israelite community entered the wilderness of Zin in the 1st month, and they settled in Kadesh. Miriam died and was buried there. There was no water for the community, so they assembled against Moses and Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "If only we had perished when our brothers perished before Yahuwah. Why have ye brought Yahuwah's assembly into this wilderness for us, and our livestock to die here? Why have you led us up from Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It's not a place of grain, figs, vines, and pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meeting. They fell down with their faces to the ground, and the glory of Yahuwah appeared to them. Yahuwah spoke to Moses, "Take the staff and assemble the community. You and your brother Aaron are to speak to the rock while they watch, and it will yield its water. You will bring out water for them from the rock and provide drink for the community and their livestock." So Moses took the staff from Yahuwah's presence just as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron summoned the assembly in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring water out of this rock for you?" Then Moses raised his hands and struck the rock twice with his staff, so that a great amount of water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But Yahuwah said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me to show my holiness in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with Yahuwah, and he showed his holiness to them." Whew. I definitely would not play fast and loose like that. Not at all. I would seriously would have raised my staff up and been like, okay, Yahuwah, your turn, I would not have hit the rock. That's just pride. That's pride, big time. Oh my gosh, I would not have done that. So Moses took the staff from Yahuwah's presence, just as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron summoned the assembly in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, oh wait, we read that already. Oh, I was reading it over. We're down here at verse 12. But Yahuwah said to Moses and Aaron, we read that too, huh? Yes, we did. Okay, so we're down at verse 14. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. This is what your brother Israel says. You know all the hardships that have overtaken us. Our fathers went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt many years. But the Egyptians treated us and our fathers badly. When we cried out to Yahuwah, he heard our voice, sent an angel, and brought us out of Egypt. Now look, we are in Kadesh, a city on the border of your territory. Please let us travel through your land. We won't travel through any field or vineyard or drink any of your water. Oh, any well water. We will travel the king's highway. We won't turn to the right or to the left until we have traveled through your territory. But Edom answered him, you must not travel throughout our land, or we will come out and confront you with the sword. We will go on the main road. The Israelites replied to them, and if we or our herds drink your water, we will pay its price. There will be no problem. Only let us travel through on foot. Yet Edom insisted, you must not travel through. And they came out to confront them with a large force of heavy armed people. Edom refused to allow Israel to travel through their territory, and Israel turned away from them. After they set out from Kadesh, the entire Israelite community came to Mount Hor. Yahuwah said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor, on the border of the land of Edom, Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land I have given the Israelites, because you both rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up to Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar. Aaron will be gathered to his people and die there. So Moses did as Yahuwah commanded, and they climbed Mount Hor in the sight of the whole community. After Moses removed Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar, Aaron died there on top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. When the whole community saw that Aaron had passed away, the entire house of Israel mourned for him 30 days. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that Israel was coming to Atharim road, he fought against Israel and captured some prisoners. Then Israel made a vow to Yahuwah, if you will deliver these people into our hands, we will completely destroy their cities. Then Yahuwah listened to Israel's request. The Canaanites were defeated and Israel completely destroyed them and their cities. So they named the place Hormah. Hey, Mary? Oh, never mind. I need to get up for a minute, guys. I need to turn the light on. It's dark. right, bye. Okay. Alright. Here we go. Now I can see. Okay. Where did I leave off at? Oh, here it is. When the Canaanite came... Oh, we did read that. Okay. I don't know. Okay. Here we are. We're on chapter 21, verse 4. Then they set out from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to bypass the land of Edom. But the people became impatient because of the journey. The people spoke against Yahuwah and Moses. Why have you led us up from Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread or water, and we detest this wretched food. Then Yahuwah sent poisonous snakes among the people, and they bit them, so that many Israelites died. This is interesting. It says sent poisonous snakes, but I was reading from the Torah portion website, and I was listening to that version, and it was saying fiery serpents. So I'm gonna have to study this further as far as if that's an actual snake or if it is some kind of fiery serpent, which would make me question like dragons or something like that. I don't know. That would be interesting though. Okay, so we left off. The people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned by speaking against Yahuwah and against you. Intercede with Yahuwah so that he will take the snakes away from us." And Moses interceded for the people. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, "Make a snake image," so here's a snake, "and mount it on a pole. When anyone who is bitten looks at it, he will recover." So Moses made a bronze snake and mounted it on a pole. Whenever someone was bitten and he looked at the bronze snake, he recovered. The Israelites set out and camped at Oboth. Oboth? I don't know. They set out from Oboth and camped at Iabarim. Okay? In the wilderness that borders Moab on the east. From there they went and camped at Zered Valley. They set out from there and camped on the other side of the Arnon River, in the wilderness that extends from the Amorite border, because the Arnon was the Moabite border between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is stated in the book of Yahuwah's Wars. Yahuwah's Wars, really? Waheb in Supa and the ravines of the Arnon, even the slopes of the ravines that extend to the site of Ar, and lie along the border of Moab. From there they went to Beer, the well the Yahuwah told Moses about. Gather the people, so I may give them water. Then Israel sang this song. Spring up well, sing to it. The princes dug the well. The nobles of the people hollowed it out with a scepter and with their staffs. They went from the wilderness to Mattanah, from Mattanah to Nachaliel, from Nachaliel to Bamoth, from Bamoth to the valley in the territory of Moab, near the Pisgah highlands that overlook the wasteland. That's interesting. People say, "Oh, Yahusha, Jesus is the scepter." Well, it says that there's a scepter and staffs. So, you pick. Who's who? I don't see that. But, if you want to look at that symbolically, go right on ahead. But there's two there. There's a staff and there's a scepter. So, I'm not sure where you got that from. Moving along. Alright. So, we're 21, verse 21. Israel sent messengers to say to Sihon, king of the Amorites, "Let us travel through your land." We won't go into the fields or vineyards. We won't drink any well water. We will travel the king's highway until we have traveled through your territory. But Sihon would not let Israel travel through his territory. Instead, he gathered his whole army and went out to confront Israel in the wilderness. When he came to Jahaz, he fought against Israel. Israel struck him with the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, but only up to the Ammonite border because it was fortified. Israel took all the cities and lived in all these Amorite cities, including Heshbon and all its villages. Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and had taken control of all his land as far as the Arnon. Therefore the poets say, "Come to Heshbon, let it be rebuilt. Let the city of Sihon be restored. For fire came out of Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the lords of Arnon's heights. Woe to you, Moab! You have been destroyed, people of Chemosh." He gave up his sons as refugees and his daughters into captivity. To Sihon the Amorite king, we threw them down. Heshbon has been destroyed as far as Dibon. We caused desolation as far as Nopah, which reaches as far as Medaba. Oh my goodness, these words. So Israel lived in the Amorites' land. After Moses sent spies to Jazer, Israel captured its villages and drove out the Amorites who were there. Then they turned and went up the road to Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, came out against them with his whole army to do battle at Edrei. But Yahuwah said to Moses, "Do not fear him, for I have handed him over to you along with his whole army and his land. Do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon." So they struck him, his sons, and his whole army until no one was left, and they took possession of his land. Okay, and we're reading just 22:1. Okay. The Israelites traveled on and camped in the plains of Moab near the Jordan across from Jericho. And that is the Torah portion. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Haftorah, which is Judges 11. So let's go to Judges. That's 11. And it was verse 1 through 33. Okay. So Judges 11:1. Jephthah the Gileadite was a great warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute, and Gilead was his father. Gilead's wife bore him sons, and when they grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You will have no inheritance in our father's house, because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Then some lawless men joined Jephthah and traveled with him. Sometime later, the Ammonites fought against Israel. When the Ammonites made war with Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. They said to him, "Come be our commander, and let's fight against the Ammonites." Jephthah replied to the elders of Gilead, "Didn't you hate me and drive me from my father's house? Why then have you come to me now when you're in trouble?" They answered Jephthah, "Since that's true, we now turn to you. Come with us, fight the Ammonites, and you will become a leader of all the inhabitants of Gilead." So Jephthah said to them, "If you are bringing me back to fight the Ammonites, and Yahuwah gives them to me, I will be your leader." The elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, Yahuwah is our witness, if we don't do as you say. So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead. The people put him over themselves as leader and commander, and Jephthah repeated all his terms in the presence of Yahuwah at Mizpah. Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites, saying, What do you have against me, that you have come to fight against me and my land? The king of the Ammonites said to Jephthah's messengers, When Israel came from Egypt, they seized my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok and the Jordan. Now restore it peaceably. Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites to tell him, This is what Jephthah says. Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when they came from Egypt, Israel traveled through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, Please let us travel through your land. But the king of Edom would not listen. They also sent messengers to the king of Moab, but he refused. So Israel stayed in Kadesh. Then they traveled through the wilderness and around the lands of Edom and Moab. They came to the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of the Arnon, but did not enter into the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon. Israel said to him, Please let us travel through your land to our country. But Sihon would not trust Israel to pass through his territory. Instead, Sihon gathered all his people, camped at Jahaz, and fought with Israel. Then Yahuwah, God of Israel, handed over Sihon and all his people to Israel, and they defeated him. So Israel took possession of the entire land of the Amorites who lived in that country. They took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the wilderness to the Jordan. Yahuwah, God of Israel, has now driven out the Amorites before his people Israel. And will you now force us out? Isn't it true that you may possess whatever your god Chemosh drives out for you, and we may possess everything Yahuwah our God drives out before us? Now, are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever contend with Israel or fight against them? While Israel lived 300 years in Heshbon and its villages in Aroer, and its villages, and in all the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon, why didn't you take them back at that time? I have not sinned against you, but you have wronged me by fighting against me. Let Yahuwah, who is the judge, decide today between the Israelites and the Ammonites. But the king of the Ammonites would not listen to Jephthah's message that he sent him. Then the spirit of Yahuwah came on Jephthah, who traveled through Gilead and Manasseh, and then through the Mizpah of Gilead. He crossed over to the Ammonites from Mizpah of Gilead. What are we reading to? 33, okay. Jephthah made this vow to Yahuwah, If you will hand over the Ammonites to me, whatever comes out of the doors of my house to greet me, when I turn in peace from the Ammonites, will belong to Yahuwah, and I will offer it as a burnt offering. Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and Yahuwah handed them over to him. He defeated 20 of their cities with a great slaughter from Aroer all the way to the entrance of Minnith and to Abel Keramim. Okay, so the Ammonites were subdued before the Israelites. Okay, and that is the Torah portion and the Haftorah. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it out, and I hope that everybody got something from this. It wasn't as in-depth as the other Torah portions have been, and there will be more that obviously come about that are going to be way more in-depth than what this one is. So just want to say Shabbat Shalom, and everybody have a good night.